Come to order. A quorum is present. The committee meets today pursuant to notice, and without objection, the chair may recess the committee at any point. I don't want to do that. Let me be honest with you, I'm glad to see you all back. I missed you all. And I would hope that at this point, that this committee, which I think is truthfully the most vitally needed committee in all of Congress when we talk about education and workforce, that we can come together and remind ourselves that the past, whether it be the past 7 weeks or what, is the past, and now we can get back to the work of the people that they've called us to do. So I'm delighted to see you all, and hope this will be a great and positive hearing, where we've had some negative hearings by right of what we need to do in this committee. There's always a good opportunity to have positive hearings looking at innovation in the space that we are most concerned with. Good morning and welcome to today's Committee on Education Workforce hearing. I want to thank our witnesses for joining us as we examine how innovation in higher education can expand opportunity, improve student outcomes, and make college more affordable. The need for innovation is clear across our higher education system. Only about 61% of first-time students earn a degree within 6 years, not 4 years. And completion rates are even lower for non-traditional and part-time learners. As a result, nearly 42 million Americans have attended college but left without earning a credential. This some college, no credential population underscores a critical gap in our education system. Too many students invest time and money and effort in higher education without ever seeing the return they deserve. At the same time, a divide persists between how educators and graduates view workforce readiness. Nearly 9 in 10 educators believe their students are ready for the workplace. Yet only half of recent graduates feel prepared for entry-level roles, and just 1 in 3 believe their education was worth the cost, and their employers feel the same way. Meanwhile, the profile of the typical college student has changed. Today, most students are non-traditional, working adults, parents, caregivers, and veterans whose needs and schedules look very different from an 18-year-old living on campus. College also faced demographic and economic challenges. A looming enrollment cliff is projected to shrink the pool of new high school graduates entering college by about 13% between 2025 and 2041. And more young Americans are opting out of college altogether. Just 62.8% of 2024 high school graduates enrolled in college immediately after graduation, down 4 percentage points from 2019. These realities demand new technologies, new models, and new mindset to ensure higher education truly meets the needs of students and families. Fortunately, innovation is not a distant goal. It's happening right now, reshaping how students access, afford, and complete college. Artificial intelligence, or AI, for example, is transforming learning and operations. Students and faculty are using AI to brainstorm ideas, tutor, design coursework, and streamline feedback. Institutions are automating administrative workflows to reduce costs and improve service. High-quality online and hybrid classes are making college more accessible for working adults, parents, and veterans who need flexibility. Colleges are collaborating through course-sharing partnerships, ensuring students can take required courses from another college, even if they're not offered at their home institution. Partnerships between colleges and job creators are also driving innovation, ensuring programs align with workforce needs and preparing students for the jobs of tomorrow and today. The Trump administration helping accelerate this progress by prioritizing AI literacy and directing competitive grants toward AI implementation in higher education, reflecting a commitment to modernizing our higher education system and ensuring innovation leads to real results for learners. Today's panel represents that commitment. We are joined by leaders from across the higher education landscape who are driving innovation and helping shape the future of learning. I look forward to their testimony and to today's important discussion. And so with that, I now yield to my friend from Virginia, the ranking member, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back.
Good to see you.
It's been quite a while since we've seen Republicans in town. Democrats came back a couple of times just to see if we could entice you back.
I was back and I saw you here.
Okay, well, it was good to see you then, but it's good to be back and back at work. Now, innovation in higher education is crucial if we want to ensure that all Americans can access and graduate from college. Practices such as offering flexible learning options, leveraging digital tools, providing student services, and financial support can improve students' college experience and completion. But not all innovations make a difference. Some even come at the expense of student outcomes or equity, and our core responsibility as federal policymakers is to make sure that every student can succeed regardless of background. Unfortunately, the Trump administration and my Republican colleagues are intent upon undoing the progress we've made. That so-called big ugly law is a prime example. It eliminates grad plus loans, pushes students into predatory private loan market, makes it easier for predatory for-profit colleges to defraud students. Cutting these programs without offering an alternative solution to address the rising cost of college will adversely affect low-income borrowers and those who have less access to capital. This isn't just a policy mistake, it's a moral failure that threatens the futures of aspiring doctors, nurses, and researchers. In fact, the limitations on Pell and student loan in that big ugly bill make it impossible for students who can attend medical school today to attend medical school under the new rules if they can't come up with about $50,000 to complete their education. And it doesn't stop there. We've seen the Trump administration circumvent Congress and dismantle the Department of Education, including hollowing out the Institute of Education Services. Now, we know that without IES, we are robbed of essential evidence and research that helps inform good policy making. Without this institution, we lose the capacity to measure whether our investments in education are working, whether students are succeeding, or whether we're simply throwing money into programs that aren't making a difference. And the result, we lose the ability to hold publicly funded schools and colleges accountable. We can't even properly track student outcomes, let alone identify and fix what's broken. Moreover, we've proven that innovation in higher education can work when we focus on evidence-based best practices. Federal initiatives such as the Post-Secondary Student Success Grant, PSSG, are perfect examples of how we can help states and institutions innovate and implement programs with proven track records of improving students' success. These grants are designed to help students not only gain access to academic support, such as tutoring and advising, but also help students graduate on time. And regrettably, the Trump administration has already made clear that it has no plan to fund these programs. Despite congressional Republicans and Trump administration's intent to take us backwards, the world around us continues to move forward. For better or worse, the new technology and artificial intelligence are in our workplaces and our classrooms. Our challenge now must be to understand how we can best leverage innovations without sacrificing student outcomes. We cannot allow innovation to intentionally or unintentionally leave certain students behind. True innovation can only be achieved if we prioritize addressing disparities in student outcomes and following the evidence and research. We are responsible for ensuring that all students, no matter their wealth or background, can attend college and achieve their dreams. This future must continue. This is a future that we must continue to build, not one where access to opportunity is restricted, but a future where we can push forward, expand access, and lift every student. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, all members who wish to insert written statements in the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically in Microsoft Word format by 5 p.m. Today, 14 days or 14 days after this hearing. And without objection, the hearing record will remain open for 14 days to allow such statements and other extraneous material noted during the hearing to be submitted for the official hearing record. I'll now turn to what I've looked forward to and giving introduction to our 4 witnesses on the panel today. Welcome, and we appreciate you being here. Our first witness is Dr. Jeffrey Docking, the president of Oyerinde College from Oyerinde, Michigan, my home area, and sweatshirts that my 3 little granddaughters are wearing now of Oyerinde College. I look forward to your testimony, Dr. Docking. Our second witness is Dr. Kollin Napier, the director of the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network from Gulfport, Mississippi. Welcome. Our third witness is Dr. Wil Del Pilar, the senior vice president for higher education at Ed Trust here in Washington, D.C. Welcome. Our last witness is Mr. Tade Oyerinde. I hope I got that right. Close. That's phonics. Phonics help. The chancellor of campusedu.edu from New York City. Welcome. We thank the witnesses for being here today. Pursuant to committee rules, I would ask that you each limit your oral presentation to 3-minute summary of your written statement. The clock will count down from 3 minutes as committee members have many questions for you, and we would like to spend as much time as possible on the questions. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8D, the committee practice, however, we will not cut off your testimony until you reach the 5-minute mark. I would also like to remind the witnesses to be aware of their responsibility to provide accurate information to the committee. And so now I will first recognize Dr. Docking for your testimony.
Well, thank you, Chairman Wahlberg, Ranking Member Scott, and members of this important committee. My name is Jeff Docking. I've been the president of Oyerinde College for the past 20 years. It's a small liberal arts college about 35 miles south of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm happy to talk to you today about one of the most exciting innovations that I've seen during my 37 years in higher education. Approximately 10 years ago, I came to the conclusion that the business model of higher education is terribly broken. College is too expensive, students are taking on too much debt, large increases in federal student aid programs are unlikely, and state-level support is leveling off. In addition to the broken business model, there's a second problem. Colleges need to do a better job of preparing students for the rapidly changing modern economy that we all live in. Society is changing so quickly, especially in the areas of technology, health sciences, and business, that we need to offer new majors that students desperately want and our nation desperately needs. But because it is so expensive to start new majors, it simply doesn't happen. I'm talking about critical majors like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, data science, neuroscience, even supply chain management. Well, I'm pleased to tell you that I believe we have figured out the solution to solve most of these problems. The solution, which I will explain in greater detail in a minute, relies on colleges working together in a partnership in a way that they've never done so before to bring massive efficiency to our system. This innovative solution is not theoretical. It is happening now on 140 campuses nationwide and serving over 10,000 students annually at traditional colleges. Here's how it works. In 2018, when I realized the business model was broken, I identified inefficiency as the root cause. Colleges are very inefficient, making them very expensive places to run. We need to work together, especially in the areas of teaching and learning, to make them more efficient. And we can do this by leveraging technology that makes it possible for colleges to share classes in a much more cost-effective way. Now, the biggest reason why colleges have not shared classes in the past is because there was never a platform to do so, a platform that colleges could tap into seamlessly to give students great classes from great professors on other campuses, classes that students can take online, either synchronously or asynchronously, and for college credit on their own campus. Sharing classes is more difficult than it appears, but in 2018, I talked two recent Harvard graduates, Kevin Harrington and Connor McCarthy, to join me at Adrian College to solve this problem. And over the next 2 years, we built a platform that makes sharing classes seamless for everybody involved. We now can offer new classes and start new majors for only a fraction of the cost. Let me give you one example to show you how it works. At Adrian College, we very much wanted to start a new major in supply chain management, but we couldn't afford the startup costs. Hiring new professors, paying salaries, retirement plans, office space, technology. It can easily cost $500,000 to start a new major. Well, we learned that there was a similar institution to us in Newton, Massachusetts called LaSalle University that offered supply chain management. LaSalle agreed to share the 5 classes we needed to start the new major. We pay $500 for each student who enrolls in these classes. Some money goes to LaSalle for sharing their courses, and some goes to the platform that we call RISE to build it out and offer additional majors. And RISE is a private company of over 60 employees now, and I am one of the co-founders. This platform has made it possible for this consortium of colleges to scale new majors. Now, over 140 colleges in our consortium have passed 785 new academic programs for a fraction of the traditional cost. At Adrian, for example, we've added 36 new academic programs over the past 5 years without adding one professor. This platform and shared classes represent what I believe is the college of the future. Institutions in partnership with each other to lower costs that can eventually be passed on to students and their families. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I recognize now Dr. Napier.
Good morning, Chairman Walberg, Ranking Member Scott, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. You have asked how innovation can improve outcomes and lower cost in higher education. That question defines the work we are doing in Mississippi. I serve as director of the Mississippi Artificial Intelligence Network, otherwise known as MAIN, M-A-I-N, and this is based at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. MAIN is the nation's first statewide AI initiative in higher education. It unites every public community college and university in the state of Mississippi through a coordinated strategy to make learning more affordable, more accessible, and more aligned with workforce demand. The challenges you are addressing today are the same pressures we face on the ground. Mississippi's response is to use innovation to solve problems that matter: cost, time, and relevance. First, reducing cost. Maine, in partnership with industry, provides a statewide AI curriculum delivered online at no cost to learners. This prevents every institution from duplicating introductory course development and expands access for working adults who cannot enroll on a semester schedule. Shared materials lower per-student costs and return institutional savings to instruction. Second, shortening time. MGCCC and our partners use stackable micro-credentials and self-paced modules that help adults gain skills quickly and apply them towards degrees without starting over. This model is essential as states confront the enrollment cliff and as more learners balance work, parenting, or military service. Third, increasing relevance. MGCCC provides a clear example of how institutions can embed AI, data literacy, cloud computing, and cybersecurity across general education and career programs to keep learning aligned with modern industry practice. Students in fields such as advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and logistics gain experience with the tools used in real workplaces. The goal is not to replace faculty or technicians with AI, but to ensure that welders can read sensor data, nurses can use clinical decision support, and logistics professionals can detect anomalies earlier. AI augments human work. Technology enables these shifts. Responsible use of AI can support early alerts, streamline degree audits and scheduling, reduce textbook cost, and help colleges identify where credit lost, ghost enrollment, or administrative friction undermine student progress. When governed well, these tools strengthen completion and reduce waste. The lesson from Mississippi's work is simple. Coordinated innovation lowers duplication, expands options for working learners, and strengthens alignment between education and employment. We are not claiming to have solved the challenges facing higher education. We are showing that when systems align around affordability, access, and outcomes, innovation becomes practical, measurable, and repeatable. These principles are relevant far beyond our state. Thank you for the opportunity to share Mississippi's experience. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Del Pilar.
Thank you. Chairman Walberg, Ranking Member Scott, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. For millions of students, the future of higher education isn't an abstract debate. It's about whether college remains a gateway to opportunity or becomes another barrier to making their dreams a reality. My name is Wil Del Pilar, where I serve as Senior Vice President at Ed Trust. Our mission is simple and urgent: to close opportunity gaps and advance racial and economic justice in education. Education is a civil right, one that too many students are still denied. We're here to talk about innovation, but innovation alone cannot fix a system where students face rising prices, shrinking supports, and pathways that are difficult to navigate. Nearly 90% of Pell students still face unmet financial need. Black, Latino, and low-income students continue to experience gaps in affordability and completion. Today's students are older, working, parenting, and navigating institutions that were not designed to support their success. The 43 million Americans who started college but never finished are not failures. They're a reflection of a higher education system where affordability and access are roadblocks. Innovation matters, but it can't replace investment. What changes students' lives is evidence-based supports paired with resources to deliver it, and we know it works. Programs like CUNY ASAP nearly double graduation rates. Georgia State is boosting retention through early alerts, advising, and small emergency grants that keep students enrolled. Institutional partners also help students complete degrees and earn higher wages. States are expanding dual enrollment, early college, high school, FAFSA is a high school graduation requirement, direct admissions, and community college baccalaureate programs, creating pathways to post-secondary programs that lead to economic mobility. Right now, those pathways are in danger. The administration's move to dismantle research capacity at IES, undermine the Department of Education, threaten Pell, and impose controls on universities undercuts the very innovation we claim to value. And their choice to defund the Post-Secondary Student Success Grant, also known as PSSG, and other programs supported by the Fund for the Improvement of Post-Secondary Education, or FIPSE, is especially devastating. FIPSE supports several different programs, including PSSG, that help students stay enrolled, meet basic needs, afford textbooks, and access to guidance that keeps them on track. For low-income students, parents, first-generation students, and veterans, this support is often the difference between earning a degree or joining the 43 million non-completers. Congress has already recognized the power of this work by funding PSSG across administrations with bipartisan support. We urge you to fully fund PSSG and all the FIPSE programs in any upcoming appropriations agreement. Our economy cannot afford millions more who start college hoping for a better life, only to be pushed out by obstacles we have the tools and the responsibility to remove. We cannot ask students to innovate their way out of underinvestment. We cannot demand modern solutions while stripping away data, staff, civil rights protection, and the basic supports that make student success possible. Students are doing everything we ask of them and more. They are working, parenting, and still pushing towards degrees that can change the trajectory of their family for generations. The question is not whether they are ready for innovation, they are. The question is whether we will match their determination with the investment they deserve. To build a stronger workforce, a more competitive economy, and more equitable democracy, we must invest in what works. Restoring PSSG, protecting federal education infrastructure, and scaling evidence-based student success strategies like those detailed in my written testimony. EdTrust stands ready to defend students' right to learn today because that dedication drives America's growth tomorrow. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Now I recognize Mr. Oyerinde for your testimony.
Thank you. Chairman Wahlberg, Ranking Member Scott, and members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Tade Oyerinde. I'm the founder and chancellor at Campus, a two-year college reimagining the future of post-high school education in America. At its best, American higher education is second to none on this planet, a system built to cultivate the talents of our young people and prepare them to lead productive and awesome lives. And when it's functioning properly, it delivers great results for society. We know, for example, that on average, young people who complete a bachelor's degree will out-earn folks with just a high school diploma by more than $1 million over the course of their careers. But I'm here today because, like many Americans in my generation, I've experienced firsthand that our higher education system has fallen off the tracks. The cost of college is out of control. We all know this. It's like a disease that just keeps on getting worse. And so to save money, millions of Americans are starting college off at our community colleges, which, when they work, are truly phenomenal. Schools like Miami-Dade and De Anza and Cupertino have the hardest jobs in the world and yet still deliver excellent outcomes for students at scale. But on a systemic level, far too often our community colleges are not equipped to be successful at actually improving the lives of students. Here's some data. The average community college in our country has a graduation rate of about just 30%. And just 14% of students who start off at a community college will actually transfer into and graduate from a four-year university, just 14%. Here's the worst part. Each year, approximately 260,000 students drop out of our community colleges holding a collective $1.5 billion in student loan debt, $5,700 each, and no degree. They have no increased earning potential and are now in debt. They're worse off than if they'd never gone to college in the first place. This is a crisis for our country. We've turned millions in my generation into unemployable debtors who started off adulthood with a negative net worth. They can't afford to buy a home, they feel they can't afford to have kids or take any risks like starting a business. And now there's an entire generation after us increasingly opting out of post-high school education altogether, asking themselves, why should I even try when a good education is so out of reach and AI is about to take all the jobs anyway? And so, in an attempt to be part of the solution, several years ago, my team and I acquired a two-year college to build out a new model, one where students don't have to choose between quality and accessibility. Today, more than 3,000 campus students are pursuing degrees in fields like applied AI and modern business administration. They're taking classes taught by a network of professors who simultaneously teach at our country's top universities like UT Austin and Stanford. Our classes are delivered live online, accessible but also highly engaging. Each of our students is paired with a success coach whose sole job is to make sure that they graduate. Students receive a bunch of additional things needed for success: a laptop, a Wi-Fi dongle so they can attend class from anywhere, free mental health counseling, free math and writing tutoring. And the best part is we've managed to figure out how to deliver all of this while keeping tuition priced below max Pell, meaning low-income students pay nothing out of pocket, and middle-income students can cover annual tuition with just a summer job at the mall or the movie theater down the street. While it's still early, our model's results speak for themselves. Our graduates who get a 3.0 GPA get guaranteed transfer admissions into dozens of great universities across the country. Our first few cohorts have already achieved graduation rates 30% higher than the national average, and not one of our more than 3,000 students has taken on a single cent of student loan debt to attend campus. We're able to sustainably offer all of this because investments in student retention are, in fact, ROI positive. And my team, including our president, Michael Zimmerman, the grandson of our college's founder, is working around the clock to keep improving our model as we scale. All of this is guided by our board of trustees, leaders who've dedicated their lives to American education, including our chair, Dr. John Wilson of Morehouse, Dr. Gail Mello, Dr. Art Levine, Dr. Eduardo Padron, and Dr. Joe May. In closing, our country needs to solve these challenges urgently, and we're committed to playing our role in scaling a model that works. I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Under Committee Rule 9, we will now question witnesses under the 5-minute rule. I will recognize myself for my 5 minutes. Dr. Docking, your testimony and prior work make clear that higher education faces a structural cost crisis that's not temporary, and budget challenges that aren't temporary. As institutions continue to close, even around the community in which your college finds itself, and families struggle with rising tuition, colleges must be willing to reform. And so I ask you, how does the course-sharing model demonstrate that meaningful cost reduction is achievable without more taxpayer funding, and also where is business and industry involved?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Traditionally, colleges and universities have been very insular institutions. You might have 7, 8, 9 colleges and universities in a 100-square-mile radius, and yet they're all replicating the same classes, the same services. You may have a German professor on every single campus, with very, very few German majors on any one campus. And so by sharing classes, we can have one German professor share classes with all of the other schools that want to participate in the consortium. And so we've reduced over $2 million out of our budget through this already. And it's one of the reasons why we have black ink at Adrian College. The first semester that we offered shared courses, and I can talk more about why students like these so much later, but we had about 30 students taking these courses. When I got on the plane yesterday to be here, we had 1,100. So students love these shared courses, and they're reporting great experiences in them. To the second part of your question, one of the reasons why they love these courses so much is that we work very closely with industry to put these courses together. Google, for example, was a very early adopter of what we were trying to do and have been incredibly supportive. And Google has said to us, look, things are changing, monthly, let alone yearly. Would you give us the opportunity to review the curriculum each year to make sure that students are learning what they need to know to get off the commencement stage and actually make a difference immediately? And so we, of course, said yes, and both the curriculum that's put together for the students and the review that takes place at the end of each year has been amazing. And so I'd lastly say that each class ends with a capstone. So all the knowledge that they've gotten from the class needs to come together in some type of relevant project that students can put on their resume to impress future business leaders. So all of those things are part of these classes, and students have really taken to them.
Thank you. Dr. Napier, the rapid advance of AI is reshaping both entry-level and mid-career workforce expectations. Yet higher education is still struggling to equip students with baseline digital and AI competencies. From your perspective, what foundational AI and digital fluency competencies should all students, regardless of major, master before graduation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So out of the gate, from a foundational standpoint, students should know how to have practical usage of AI, for example, analyzing data with it. Now, part of that is AI is rapidly changing. It's what we call a moving target. That priority of what they need to know is going to change and shift over time. So it provides back to industry alignment there and ensuring the curriculum is up to date with the latest practices. But in terms of competencies, it's pretty much the basics, understanding what it is and how to use it in a practical, real-world manner.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Oyerinde, from your perspective, dealing with community colleges, what are the most persistent structural failures in our current community college platform?
Well, it's really about the students that our community colleges are serving. They're serving, I think, in many cases, the most challenging students to serve. They're doing the Lord's work. And those students need more support than most community colleges are currently equipped to be able to provide. As Dr. Wil Del Pilar said, CUNY ASAP has already demonstrated a lot of what works. You provide students with coaches. At campus, for every 50 students we enroll, we have a coach. This coach is there providing the kind of work my parents did when, they're kicking my butt when I start slacking, and they're a shoulder to lean on when things get tough. And that's what we provide to every student. And quite frankly, that's what's needed if you're serious about getting graduation rates up. Well, because many of these students don't have parents who went to college or university like mine did. We hear from students all the time, their dad's actually discouraging them from remaining enrolled and saying, go get a job at Walmart and help me out with the bills. And so what's needed is a lot of students need these wraparound supports. The challenge that community colleges have structurally is that they can't figure out how to economically offer what we already know and the science has already shown works. It is expensive to start off, but what I'm here to say today is that ROI from these investments is positive. And if you can get that, that ball rolling, it pays for itself.
Okay, thank you. It builds on itself. My time has expired. I now recognize my friend from Virginia, the ranking member, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Docking, excuse me. Can you tell me the value of a liberal arts degree, even if it can't be monetized immediately in the job market?
Yes, Congressman Scott, the value of a liberal arts degree is that we teach students not necessarily what to think, but how to think, to be lifelong learners, to look at what's presented to them every day in terms of the experiences they have and the people they meet, what they're trying to accomplish professionally and otherwise, and to learn from those experiences. The liberal arts exposes students to several disciplines during their undergraduate years, so they're comfortable in everything from math to history to English, speaking, writing, and so it creates a well-rounded person that's committed to lifelong learning.
And during the life, is it as valuable as a technical education where you learn a skill and can monetize it immediately?
It is, Mr. Scott. If you look 20 years out to liberal arts majors, they're doing just as well as schools in more technical fields. Certainly, right out of college, if you get a degree in a pre-professional program like engineering, you might make more in the first few years, but liberal arts majors quickly catch up because of this emphasis on lifelong learning.
Thank you. Dr. Del Pilar, can you tell me the effect that financial support has on a student's likelihood of completion?
We know from the research that students oftentimes leave college because of small life events that move them off of the pathway. So for example, I was visiting a community college in Tennessee where students, the average emergency grant that a student received was $80. And that was the difference oftentimes between students being able to stay enrolled or students having to leave. So programs like the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund that Congress invested in years ago make a huge difference. We've done some research looking at programs in Texas. And during that time, the institutions with the most Pell students actually had higher than average retention rates because of those emergency grants that provide students with the resources just in time at the point where they needed them or where they were experiencing oftentimes a life challenge that may put them off track.
And what kind of emergencies cost $80?
Pop tire, you can't pay your electric bill, just the basic things that oftentimes students may be facing. If you're full-time enrolled and you're working full-time, a significant number of students are working full-time, those small life events can lead you off track.
Thank you. And Dr. Napier, we passed legislation that enabled the Pell program to fund short-term programs. How would that fit into your micro-stackable courses?
So it has to do, again, with workforce alignment there. What is the return on investment for these programs given the way that they are positioned? Is that manufacturing, is it cybersecurity, agriculture, so on and so forth. So when we talk about embedding AI into all of these things, what is that immediate impact in the field? Do we know it right now? Will we see it over time? And so, as we go to launch new short-term programs or adapt those that are currently existing, we just take a look at the critical need, not only in the nation, but more importantly in the state of Mississippi, to ensure our learners, both the traditional and non-traditional, have a pathway to employment.
Thank you. Mr. Oyerinde, you mentioned positive return on investment when you invest in students. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it's really straightforward. So imagine you have a cycle. And so the first phase of a cycle is increased investment in student supports, coaches, laptops, Wi-Fi. What that does is it improves, in the second stage of the cycle, your retention rates. So that means fewer students drop out. What happens when fewer students drop out? That means as an institution, you retain more revenue. Your balance sheet goes up because each student who drops out previously would have been lost revenue that now you're holding on to. And what can you do with that new revenue? Well, then you can now reinvest in more student support services. So it's really about getting that virtuous cycle started. That does cost a lot of money up front. We've raised over $100 million to get going, but it's profitable as a system to invest in student support services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, gentlemen. I recognize the gentlelady from North Carolina, the Chairman Emeritus, Ms. Fox.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here today. Dr. Docking, as president of a private institution, what actions have you taken or considered taking to control administrative growth, and do you believe institutions should be required to demonstrate that growth in administrative cost correlate with improved student outcomes?
Well, my college is located in a small rural town in Michigan. We have a relatively small endowment of about $85 million, and so there's not a lot of extra money to go around. And so we live every day reining in costs and trying to be careful and trying to do everything we can to pinch every penny and then give it back to our students. You know, 30 to 40% of our students are first-generation students, and so I just want to frame this from the standpoint that administrative bloat at a school like Adrian is simply out of the question. We can't afford to do so. And so, yes, we do consistently monitor it. We pay attention to salaries and how many people we're hiring, and we try to give as much as we possibly can back to students through student aid.
What reforms would most quickly increase transparency for students and families evaluating whether a degree program's worth the cost?
I think a lot of that information is available in the popular press. They'll show you what majors make through the popular press. Obviously, there's a website that I believe the government set up a number of years ago to show how colleges are doing. But we're a high-touch school. Personal attention. A large class on our campus is 25 students, and if students are concerned about you know, how much they'll make in a certain major or what they're learning, they can certainly contact us locally.
Thank you. Mr. Oyerinde, young Americans are increasingly skeptical of the value of college. In your testimony, you warn of a generation increasingly opting out of higher education, partly due to cost concerns and the fear of AI replacing jobs. Based on your experience, what concrete messages, program features, and supports have most effectively countered that skepticism and persuaded students that a lean, targeted post-secondary path can be a smart investment rather than a waste of time and money? And I just want to comment, too, that your comments about retention are so important. Every school needs to be paying attention to that. But if you could tell me, give me an answer to my question.
Yes, thank you, Congresswoman. Look, it's really simple. Two words resonate with students: no debt. It's that simple. For students, particularly the two-year space, they should not be taking on loans when our completion rates are what they are. Even the best community colleges in the country don't have above 50% completion rates. So with the reality being what it is, most of these students should not be taking on student loans, and that resonates. These students have a cousin, uncle, older sibling who has taken on a lot of loans and who can't get great work. And that is the most effective anti-college marketing that you could possibly conceive. And so I think the more that we can do to clarify to students, no, you shouldn't be taking on loans to complete a community college degree. We should figure out ways as institutions to make it profitable for us to serve these students with the supports they need without them having to take on student loans. That resonates really well.
I have another question for you. Campus CDU has grown rapidly with a mission to lower cost, improve degree completion. What specific design choices allow you to offer degrees at lower cost than traditional institutions?
Yeah, so number one, it's about live online instruction. I think a lot of the research and the data that we still collect at the Department of Ed on online learning and the lower completion rates of online learning misinterprets that there actually is a distinction between synchronous and asynchronous online classes. Synchronous online learning, meaning the student is there, the professor's there, and the classmates are all there in front of their computer screens at the same time, is going to have much better retention rates than asynchronous online. And again, when you have better retention rates, you have better retained revenue that as an institution you can use to invest in more student support. So everything we do at campus is about improving retention and improving that graduation rate, which is in fact demonstrably profitable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Now I recognize the gentlelady from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses. I agree the cost of post-secondary education today is unacceptable, and we must do more. But if my colleagues in the majority truly cared about improving student outcomes and opening doors of opportunity and lowering college costs, they would be fighting against President Trump's unconstitutional effort to dismantle the Department of Education, and they would have opposed the big ugly bill that eliminated subsidized student loans and slashed federal funding for graduate education. These are policy choices, and I want to note, of course, the cost of college is going up because costs are going up and because of widespread disinvestment at the state level as well in higher education. We should be opening the door to higher education by investing in grants, investing in debt-free higher education, or at the very least interest-free loans, in work study, but not by opening the door to for-profit groups with a dubious record of success. And I want to start with Dr. De Pilar. We already have several programs that improve student outcomes. The high school equivalency program, you mentioned the emergency program, loan program, the college assistant migrant program, TRIO, and Gear Up. But unfortunately, the Trump administration and House Republicans proposed cutting rather than investing in those programs. So how important are programs like TRIO and Gear Up, especially for marginalized first-generation college students, and why is funding these programs important?
I think providing students with pathways and information for college is critical. And so these programs serve as that important social capital resource that many times students oftentimes lack. There's really good research, it's called the Wisconsin Status Attainment Model, that shows that students who actually have one person in their life who is telling them about post-secondary education, that is investing time in them, actually have higher academic and occupational outcomes than those students who don't have that. They've been repeating this study since the 1950s. In rural towns, they've done it in urban areas, and they've done it in other areas, and it's called significant others influence. These
It really makes a
programs
difference. I don't want to interrupt you, but I have
yes.
another question I want to move on to.
They serve as that critical connection point for students.
Absolutely. And Dr. De Pilar, 2024, the Digital Education Council survey showed that institutes of higher education are facing these simultaneous challenges. Students are turning to AI tools without a strong foundation in digital or critical literacy, and faculty have limited support on how to integrate and supervise AI. So according to a survey, 86% of students are using AI, but 1 in 2 of them don't feel equipped with the digital skills they need to move into the workforce. And the council's faculty survey this year found that only 6% of faculty feel that their institution provides sufficient AI literacy development resources. So what do we need to adapt to this? Are there examples of someone or some place where they're doing this well?
I mean, I think colleges are still really struggling with how to integrate AI into their curricular model, into teaching and learning. And so I would say that institutions are still grappling with how to deal with AI and deal with it. I think my colleague from Mississippi may provide some other examples, but I think colleges are still struggling with the practical application of AI in the classroom in a curricular setting.
Thank you, and no doubt this is a conversation about innovation. We need to talk about that more. Dr. Docking, I grew up in Michigan, so I know Albion, know it well. But I live in Oregon now, and I followed closely the collapse of Concordia University and eventual closure of Concordia. They decided they'd get some help from one of these OPM online program management companies, and it was, needless to say, a disaster. So I just have a couple of questions for you because I'm trying to understand this. You are a co-owner of Rise Education, is that correct?
I have a very small piece of it as a co-founder, yes.
And Rise is a for-profit entity, is that correct?
Correct.
So I want to get a clarification here. So the fewer professors there are on campus at Albion, the more money Rise makes, is that correct?
No, that's not correct, ma'am. Essentially, there's a set price to start like a new major, you know, say a subscription price, it may be between $10,000 and $15,000. And then you pay a per pupil, fee that some of it goes to the platform and then some of it goes to the teaching institution. The idea is to lower costs dramatically on the front end, and then colleges can do what they want with that. So it's not that the fewer professors you have, the more it is for Rise. It's
I
not at all
appreciate
that model.
But it is a for-profit entity, and you do have fewer professors on campus. And Mr. Chair, as I yield back, I just want to say it's disheartening that colleges have to turn to for-profit entities to keep their doors open. Again, that's a policy choice, yet this Congress found $170 billion to give to the Department of Homeland Security to carry out a brutal and inhumane and immoral mass deportation policy that's causing trauma across the country. I find that pathetic. What we need, and I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, about the importance of this committee, but instead of a mass deportation policy, we should have a mass education policy instead, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady and take her comments to heart. I now recognize the gentleman from Georgia, the chair of the Help Subcommittee, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Chairman Wahlberg, for holding this important hearing, and I want to thank our witnesses for your expert testimonies this morning addressing higher education, the status of higher education, and as we have discussed, we've got problems there. Well, one of the problems is a lot of the students enrolled in college. In fact, in 2023, 13% of students who took a UC San Diego math assessment could not perform at first grade level. And then, of course, it becomes the university's responsibility to deal with this. And so we've got a lot of work to do on K through 12, and then certainly the colleges need to deal with the rising, college education is not affordable today. And graduates report that the cost of a degree often outweighs the benefits, with published tuition rates increased by 500% since 1970. Additionally, the number one issue that every business I meet with faces is workforce challenges. Our education group is not talking to the business group, and the business group is not talking with the education group. And we have a huge shortage of skilled workforce in this country. AI and automation are transforming industries, yet higher education isn't evolving fast enough to equip students with the skills employers demand. Dr. Napier, with AI platforms handling more student information from learning data to advising records, data privacy has become a pressing concern. Colleges receiving federal funds are required to protect student records under FERPA. Can you discuss how frameworks such as Mississippi's statewide data governance policies and human-in-the-loop requirements ensure that deploying AI in education doesn't compromise student privacy or security?
Thank you for the question. So when utilizing AI, I'd say data is the number one thing you need. So when we talk about student data, it's ensuring that there is authorization, but also access to the specific data that you need. and specific authorities who have access to that and the way that they can utilize that as well. So it's ensuring compliance there with state and federal laws. It's ensuring the security standpoint of it, but also seeing what we even need it for. You know, what is that ROI on using the data and applying it to AI?
Bottom line, you have to have guardrails.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Mr. Oyerinde, Oyerinde, did I get that close?
No, sir, but thank you very much for trying.
Well, excuse me, I went to Auburn, so, you know, you just have to excuse that. Got a technical degree there. But anyway, campus seems attuned to workforce trends, offering programs in high-demand fields like applied AI, modern business administration, and information technology. How do you determine which programs to develop, and how do you make certain your curriculum stays aligned with the evolving needs of industry and the economy to ensure a clear return on investments for your students?
Well, as Dr. Docking already said, you have to work with employers. If you're not, as an institution, spending a lot of time with employers, trying to understand not just what skills and competencies are relevant today, but what are the needs of the workforce going to be 5 years from now, which is more challenging than it's ever been with the advent of AI, you're not going to be setting up students for success. And I think I would advise other institutions to just decide, what are you here to do? What is higher education for? You know, some institutions, it's a country club for the affluent children. Others, it might be a minor league sports team. Our two-year colleges, for sure, need to be preparing students for career and workforce readiness. And that's what we've decided to do, and the way you do that is by interfacing with employers closely.
Good, good. Well, obviously, we've got a lot of work to do in our education system. Technology is moving rapidly. We're in a global competition on AI and broadband and 5G, and then there's going to be 6G. So it's moving at lightning speed, and somehow we've got to give young people the opportunity to and prepare them for the future. Mr. Dockin, you got any comments regarding? We got 9 seconds.
I just want to affirm everything that you just said. We've got a long way to go. What I want you and the other members of this committee to know, though, is that from the college side, I do believe we're working together much more closely than ever before to bring down the cost for students, as indicated by this consortium.
Great, that's good news. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I recognize the educator from California, Mr. Takano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Del Pilar, I want to focus in on dual enrollment and early college. Can you tell the committee how dual enrollment in early college brings down the cost of college?
I mean, there are lots of positive outcomes that result from dual enrollment, but in a perfect world, students are taking courses that they won't have to repeat in college, so they're earning college credit. A well-designed pathways model can save a student from 12 credits up to the first full 2 years of college. So early college high school models, for example, students will graduate with an associate's degree. That is saving a student 2 years of college tuition. Depending on the funding model of the state, there are states that will pick up the entire cost of that. In some states, it requires a student to invest resources, which obviously creates some inequities in who can participate.
Okay, so it varies from state to state.
It does vary.
Can you tell me, have early college or dual enrollment or middle colleges, have these situations been increasing over the past decade?
I mean, dual enrollment has increased dramatically over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years, with a significant number of high school students taking advantage of dual enrollment courses. We've also kind of seen the explosion of early college high schools. There's a lot of really good models in the lower Rio Grande Valley in Texas that are actually doing quite good work in advancing opportunities for students, for low-income students from the lower Rio Grande Valley who are graduating high school with an associate's degree the same day they walk across that stage.
Mr. Del Pilar, my experience on this committee is there's been bipartisan interest in this topic. Mr. Chairman, I would urge the chairman to consider having the committee do site visits around the country where dual enrollment and early college and middle colleges are working. Can you tell the committee how dual enrollment, whether it's early college, comprehensive or not, has improved the prospects of minority students?
The research on dual enrollment is quite promising. When we look at the results of dual enrollment, students, it increases high school graduation rate, it increases college enrollment, it increases the likelihood of degree completion, there's shorter average time to earn a credential. We know that low-income students who participate have higher levels of degree attainment than their peers who do not. And so we know that it has a lot of positive outcomes for those students who may not see themselves as college student, but with success in one dual enrollment course are more likely to go on and earn a post-secondary credential.
Mr. Del Pilar, can you tell me, how has the federal government historically been a part of helping this model proliferate or increase across the country? Has the Department of Education been helpful in that regard?
Historically, the department, several years ago, they ran a pilot which allowed students to use some Pell access, an experimental program that allowed students to use Pell access for dual enrollment. Through ESEA, students, through ESSA, students can also, districts can also invest through their Title I dollars in helping to pay for dual enrollment. So there have been resources, but by and large, states are investing their own resources in this, or parents and families are having to invest resources. So it does create that inequity in who can participate.
Has the data that's been produced by department research been helpful in helping us understand the utility of this model?
I would argue that the best data that we're getting actually comes from states in terms of the assessment that they're doing of dual enrollment programs that they're offering. So Texas is one state that has really good data on dual enrollment. Alabama has really good data on dual enrollment. Tennessee has really good data. We don't have the data infrastructure. If we invested in the College Transparency Act, maybe we'd have better data.
Mr. Oyerinde, I'm curious about your two-year model. Have you looked at or considered getting on this dual enrollment bandwagon and working with the public schools to partner as many community colleges do? I applaud that low-income students don't pay anything under your model. I'm thinking this could be very exciting if you were to partner with our K-12 schools or the high schools in helping students avoid 2 years of college costs by doing some sort of early college model.
Sounds like you've been eavesdropping in some of our meeting rooms, but yes, that's exactly the plan. I think the best way to market and get the word out about college not being inaccessible, not being low quality, not being high debt, is to give students a little taste, and we're doing that next year in a big way.
My time is up. I would love to know your student to teacher ratio and how you achieve, how that works, but I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman in answer to your question. If you notice, this week is going to be a rather full week for this committee, trying to catch up with some things and do it in such a way that it'll give us opportunities for things like you're talking about and seeing what's actually going out in the marketplace of education and ideas. So I take your recommendation to heart. I now recognize the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And indeed, this is a bipartisan committee, and it was exciting to see the questions by Congressman Takano and Mr. Oyerinde. It is fascinating to think that these classes can be provided online and that the cost can be what you've indicated and what this means as opportunities for young people. And so I want to wish you well. And in line with Congressman Takano, the ability of providing this field to high school education, what is being done working with state superintendents of education?
Yeah, so we're just getting geared up to launch big initiatives next year in the dual enrollment and early college space. As has already been discussed, it's really important to get students there. What we did first was we focused on partnering with four-year universities. So students who come to campus get guaranteed admission into Arizona State University, Morehouse in Atlanta, Butler University in Indiana, and many other great schools. Now that we have those guaranteed admissions pathways, we're beginning to partner with high schools to do dual enrollment at no cost to students.
That's terrific. And Dr. Napier, I want you to know your last name is highly respected in South Carolina, one of our former colleagues. Congressman John Napier. So I want to wish you well, and I'm really grateful for the leadership of President Donald Trump with his executive order concerning artificial intelligence to advance AI education. And I think it's more important today than ever because we've seen examples of AI-generated Facebook videos. We've seen the James Earl Jones this week, where his voice was fabricated in impersonation. The Dolly Parton this week was identified with selling pharmaceuticals and maybe not. And then, of course, we've seen splicing, as we saw sadly with the BBC of President Trump's speeches, and just inconceivable what can be done. And then you can have candidates being mocked with fake dancing routines by AI. What recommendation do you have for the identification of AI-generated? What should be done, and what laws are there that there be identification prior to publication and/or printing or distribution? Are there any requirements now?
So thank you for the question. And right now, there's a lot of growing pains that are happening, especially with what we consider generative AI, the ChatGPT, the Gemini, the tools we're hearing more of today. Those are still, in my opinion, in their infancy. So we're learning the good, the bad, the ugly that comes to play. But we're seeing the companies behind these tools become more innovative and find ways to identify generated imagery or videos or audio to better identify on social media platforms or just for the public view. But all of this goes back to data literacy or AI literacy, understanding the power of it, that the capabilities at hand, and understanding that one bad apple should not spoil the bunch for everyone else. There's a lot of innovation at play, but there is a lot of things we need to consider with the advancement of this.
And I'm really grateful that Congressman Tom Keene of New Jersey has offered legislation that would help identify by disclosure transparency of AI generation. And in particular, it's something that I would like to see possibly at the bottom of the screen of anything that has been AI generated, that it would be identified as AI generated. And so we can respect freedom of speech. We don't want to reject that. But at the same time, the public needs to know whether it's been generated or not. Is it actually the individual who may be doing a dance routine?
So transparency would be the answer in this case across the board. From a end user perspective versus the company generating it, there needs to be understood what is being done and how it could potentially be manipulated, of course. But the transparency is key in that, and understanding how it was used and what percentage has been generated by it, and of course, as always, the accuracy or inaccuracy of the things being produced.
Well, I'm really grateful that as you're studying this, that it be looked into, because for the American public, we want to have freedom of speech, but we also want to protect a person's reputations and avoid the abuses, as you indicated, of what could be really good. And so I want to thank you. I wish you well. I'm so grateful for President Trump's leadership. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I recognize the gentlelady from North Carolina, another former educator, for your 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I know we're here today to discuss innovative technologies, but I want to start with the basics. Beyond tuition costs, students also worry about how they will afford expenses like food and housing and health care, transportation, and child care. And because of the big ugly law, many students, particularly non-traditional students, will lose access to SNAP benefits and affordable health care coverage. Their dreams and aspirations will be stripped away to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy. Dr. Del Pilar, can you give us an overview of what basic needs today's college students may lack, and how these challenges impact student retention and completion?
I mean, students face significant needs, and we see states trying to address this needs, but the reality is we're not going to food pantry our way out of food insecurity for students. I don't think that's a long-term answer to have our college set up a food pantry to address student hunger. or to allow students to park in campuses to address homelessness among students. And so I do think we need more systemic solutions when we think about the issues that students face. They are facing food insecurity, they're facing housing insecurity, they're facing issues around affordable health care and mental health services. And so I think with those type of wraparound supports, we do see among the students who actually get those services, we do see increases in retention and graduation. Students who don't have access to those, unfortunately, many times don't make it to graduation.
Thank you, thank you. I'm a 40-year retired professor, so I do understand. Research has consistently shown that students succeed when colleges provide meaningful wraparound student support services. These programs address issues such as food insecurity, child care, technology, mental health. So can you share any examples of promising student support programs that you've seen in your work? And how do these programs impact student retention and completion?
I mean, I think that there are a lot of examples of colleges doing good work. I think of Compton College, for example, in California, where my friend and colleague who is president there has set up housing for students, so a community college that offers students housing, especially in an area that is expensive for students to be able to live. I think he's making significant strides in student housing. I think other colleges that are offered, like CUNY ASAP, which is one of the examples that I used in my testimony, provide those wraparound support, including access to transportation, which we often don't think about as a basic need for students.
Thank you. According to a 2018 report from the Government Accountability Office, 46% of building space on HBCU campuses need to be repaired or replaced. How have innovative financial models like the HBCU Capital Financing Program addressed infrastructure needs at HBCUs?
I mean, I think HBCUs face significant challenges. My daughter attended HBCU. She went to Tuskegee University. And I'll just say, during the pandemic, when the instruction moved to remote learning, they were using the free version when students at more wealthier institutions had the full version of Zoom. They would get kicked out of class every 30 minutes. And so I'll say we need to continue to invest in minority serving institutions, HBCUs, to ensure that they have the infrastructure. Unfortunately, some of the FIPSI dollars were actually were dedicated to HBCUs, and those funds were spent on were redirected towards other purposes. And I would say that we have to continue investing in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions because they do face significant challenges, especially around deferred maintenance.
Thank you, sir. You know, without infrastructure, modern classrooms, our schools will struggle to implement many of the promising initiatives that we've discussed today. So what work still needs to be done to address chronic infrastructure problems, modernize HBCU campuses, and improve instructional technology to allow the implementation of innovative learning models?
I mean, I think we need significant investment in these institutions. Some research has shown from IES that these institutions have been starved of resources for years. And so I think additional resources to invest in infrastructure, to invest in technology, to invest in deferred maintenance. I was also a board member at Lincoln and Cheney University and saw with my own eyes the resources in the boarding up of buildings that could be used to improve student academic outcomes. And so I would say dedicated funding towards institutions that are doing the lion's share of access work, especially for low-income students and students of color, is critical.
Thank you so much, and I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to yield those 14 seconds back.
I thank the gentlelady. That'll be a credit. Recognize the chair of the Higher Education Workforce Subcommittee, the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Owens.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'll tell you what I'm excited about in 2025, that we're finally speaking the truth about our educational system. It's broken and has been for decades. It's sad that we had to look over the kids' shoulders and during COVID and October 7th to come to this conclusion. But I think we can all agree, no matter which side of the aisle we're on, that we have millions of our kids getting degrees that mean absolutely nothing, leaving higher ed with debt they can never pay off, not prepared to go to work, and icing on the cake, turning to activists who hate our country. So I want to thank Chairman Walberg, first of all, for the pace of correcting this ship. I was reminded by my team yesterday that this week, coming off the shutdown, education workforce will be the most active with hearings than any other committee. Over the last year, it's passed more legislation than any of the last 20-plus years. There's something I learned years ago about you cannot control the school board, but you can control the hustle. This committee is hustling. I appreciate that. I also want to thank the panelists. Your gift and your vision of innovation is invaluable to our country. The fact you put our kids first instead of institution makes our institution even better. So I want to thank you for that. We're leaning in hard for your innovation. We need to get this thing done and done correctly. So that being said, Dr. Docking, you mentioned your RISE platform, and very briefly, you made this point, it leverages technology in ways never used before, remaking the business model of our higher education. What can be done, is this model, can it be replicated and adopted throughout our country?
It will be, Mr. Owens, and I'd be surprised if 10 years from now, just about every school in the country isn't sharing classes in some form or fashion. You know, the beauty of this model is that it really preserves what's best about traditional college education. We didn't want to put together a model where a student had, you know, dinner with their parents and then just went up into their bedroom to take a class or two from their home. We love that uniquely American experience of going away to college and building a loft, and mom and dad have tears at the door, and you're meeting new friends and going to class and, you know, participating in student government and chapel and eating the dine. All of that is wonderful. We want to preserve that, but we have to figure out a way to control costs, and the way to do that is through technology and sharing. And so we feel like, and it's like I said, it's happening on 140 campuses now nationwide, that this working together, this partnership, which is a word that we use a lot, can preserve what's best, but bring an element of technology into it to truly lower costs in a much more effective way.
Thank you. I just want to make a point. I'm taking courses now in Hillsdale College in the morning. We'd love to have that kind of connection with you guys for sure. That kind of stuff is good. So anyway, Dr. Napier, with the implementation, based on your statewide work, the implementation challenges do you frequently see on the ground, which actually supports have proven most practical in helping colleges' affordability in AI?
So I think the challenge still remains making AI important for individual usage, whether that's students or faculty or administration. So if I'm an English instructor, how can I best apply AI to my practice? If I'm, teaching an advanced manufacturing course, again, how can I best apply? And I think as we continue to see more of the adoption in these specific areas and fields, we're going to see building of trust and comfort, and that's going to, in turn, go back to our students in the way that they can engage with it. Because our instructors are trusting. We're doing what we call educate the educator, and turning around and providing that for our students. And the things that are working, of course, is communication amongst the faculty and the students, the administration and the faculty, but more so the employers, the workforce, and them turning around and telling academia what they truly need in this current time.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Oyerinde, I actually had a little bit of a longer question, but I'm running out of time. I just want to ask you real quickly, how old were you when you decided to purchase this two-year college?
I think I was 28 or 29.
Okay. Can I just ask all of you guys and all those innovators who are listening in, please, let's add to your curriculum capitalism, free market, impact on growing our middle class. We've had so many decades of our system hijacked by anti-capitalist Marxists, and we need to be more non-averse. We need to be more innovative, thinking outside the box. So I want to thank you guys for that, and let's just really get our kids thinking of how can I run my own business, how can I take risks, how can I appreciate the entrepreneur, and how innovation should never come with the word but. Either we do or we die. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. So thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I recognize the gentlelady from Georgia, Ms. McBath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ranking Member Scott, and to our witnesses for being here today. Thank you so much. I don't have any formal questions for you today, but I do have some things I just kind of like to say. I do want to say that Congress and the Trump administration should be doing more to lower costs and improve our students' outcomes, as many of you have just already expressed. However, the actions taken by my Republican colleagues are only increasing costs for students and families and making it more difficult for them to succeed in school and at work. Instead of making financial aid more accessible for students who are raising families or working to put themselves through school, House Republicans voted
to exclude part-time students from financial aid programs like Pell. Instead of making it easier for students with disabilities to get around campus and to graduate on time, they have gutted offices and programs at the Department of Education that students rely on, like the Office of Civil Rights and the Institute of Education Sciences, also known as IES. In February, President Trump and Secretary McMahon canceled the Charting My Path for Future Success programs at IES, a study that served over 1,600 disabled students and their families across 62 high schools, including Paulding County and my home state of Georgia. It was year-round and involved frequent small group sessions to ensure that physically disabled juniors and seniors, as well as students with dyslexia, autism, and other disabilities, and their families can meet their goals of transitioning from high school to college or the workplace and succeeding at the same level as their non-disabled peers. Unfortunately, students with disabilities are less likely to graduate college or be gainfully employed after high school. But it doesn't have to be this way. Seeing your child grow up to thrive, that is the goal of every parent. And it takes on another level of significance when your child has a condition that makes getting around or learning more difficult. It takes a different level of commitment to ensure that they can reach the potential that every parent wants to see fulfilled in their kids, to give parents the peace of mind that their child will be okay when mom and dad aren't around. The Charting My Path program spent $25 million taxpayer dollars to actively recruit teachers and families to participate. What was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for families became just another broken promise from this administration. On this poster, you can see the exact email that was sent out to parents in the middle of the school year. It says, the federal funding provided by the Department of Education for this initiative has been discontinued immediately, and our district can no longer continue the Charting My Path study activities. When I showed this email to the Secretary during her appearance before this committee last year or earlier this year, she couldn't even remember the program. That's how little our students' futures mean to her and to this administration. Making the dream of living independently with a disability a reality, providing the peace of mind that your child really is going to be okay when you're no longer around, those things mean nothing to this secretary and to this president. Let me be very clear. There's nothing innovative about canceling programs in the middle of the school year without any say from parents. There's no innovation in wasting $25 million taxpayer dollars only to let hundreds of families down after you promised to be there for them. Time and time again, this administration and the Republicans in Congress ask the people to listen to what they say, but then ask them to ignore what they do. I look forward to working with any Republican colleague on real solutions, not just talking about them when it's convenient and then canceling programs that are meant to solve the very problems brought up in these hearings over and over again. And I yield.
I thank the gentlelady, and I recognize the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hosting this hearing and to each of our witnesses for testifying today. And I'm so happy to hear how you're innovating. You're looking for ways and solutions on how to improve our educational system. I really appreciate it. Given that the central challenge of attending college is affordability, it should come as no surprise that the average cost of a college degree has roughly tripled in the last 25 years. Currently, an in-state student attending a public university spends over $27,000 per academic year. This is a major increase from 1999 to 2000, in which the average total cost was roughly $9,000. In my home state of Illinois, the current cost is even higher, with some in-state students spending up to $40,000 per year, which I do want to inject that in Illinois, a sanctuary state, our governor has secured special eligibility and aid and benefits for students that are not here lawfully, but that's another subject. But in order to finance this education, 42.5 million students take out federal loans and may take them out for up to 20 years to pay for them. In fact, when you add in student loan interest and lost potential income, some bachelor's degrees can cost over $500,000. Despite the rising cost of getting a degree, colleges are failing to adequately prepare students to enter a rapidly changing workforce, which I believe our witnesses are here because you're looking for solutions here. Too many students are pressured into getting an expensive four-year degree when more affordable community colleges and trade schools could teach them the skills that are far more practical and marketable. I believe that everyone should have an opportunity to pursue an education, but we must find solutions to make college more affordable and a better return on investment. My first question is for Dr. Napier. Could you please elaborate on how artificial intelligence affects students' workforce readiness? Simply, how do universities ensure that AI bias does not negatively impact student learning, keeping in mind that most AI models tend to favor left-leaning narratives?
Thank you for the question. And the key element here is human in the loop. Having human oversight with implementation or involvement of AI when it comes to the instructional pathway, for faculty to student or for any other operational aspect of that there. So there needs to be clear instructions and policies. There needs to be the human oversight, as I mentioned, and of course auditing, and even making a comparison amongst multiple models.
So when you do find a left-leaning AI model presenting its information, how do you address that then?
So it could be, it depends on the context there. If you're in a development deployment stage, maybe you could fine tune it to re-emphasize some of the topics at hand. But beyond that, I think it goes back to how you're talking to it, the prompting, so to speak, the effective communication there. But it's also very much dependent on the data in which these models were built upon, which a lot of times we as the end user don't know about.
And secondly, Dr. Docking, can you share some examples of how your course sharing platform has helped other colleges and universities in developing their online courses?
Yes, ma'am. Many of these colleges are located in small towns throughout America. There's essentially 800 to 900 Adrian colleges out there, and they're really economic drivers for these small towns. These colleges can't even find professors in these small towns to teach things like AI and cybersecurity and even computer science. And so this model allows them to draw on the strength and resources and intellect of various other communities that have these resources so that the students on their campus can have the quality of education that they'd like to have, and it'll make a difference when they hit the workplace. So it really creates a much more robust pool of professors to teach these students than we can often find in these small towns.
That's great, thank you. And lastly, Mr. Oyerinde, sorry. Can you share some examples of partnerships with Campus EDU, how you've lowered costs and outcomes for college administrations?
Yeah, look, obviously, and I know we're almost out of time, AI to help automate a lot of back office processes frees up students' time and professors' time to spend time with students directly.
Thank you, keep up the great work.
I thank the gentlelady, and I thank Mr. Oyerinde as well. Very seldom do we have witnesses that recognize the time. Thank you for helping us. Of course, we don't have many members who recognize time either, myself included. Now I recognize for her 5 minutes of questioning another educator on this committee, the gentlelady from Connecticut, Ms. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin my questions, I'd like to share your enthusiasm that I too am excited that we are back in this committee doing the work that is important. And I agree with you that the work of this committee is some of the most important work in the Congress. I would like to put on your radar that on September 12th, I sent a letter to you signed by many of the members of this committee asking for a hearing on school shootings. So I am reminding you of that today while I wait for a response and urge you that as you are planning out the second half of the year and the work of this committee, that we address this incredibly important topic and begin to at least work towards solutions on this committee. Dr. Docking, I would like to say to you that I appreciate your comments about the foundational importance of a liberal arts education. I started my education at a community college and went on to earn multiple graduate and postgraduate degrees, and you are correct in that it establishes the foundation for lifelong learning. To today's hearing, the educational landscape is ever-changing, and it's important to embrace innovation in the classroom. We cannot run from cell phones, AI, or any future technology. We need to be forward-thinking about ways that we can best teach students and ensure they are getting a high-quality education that will be foundational to their lives. But that starts with ensuring our teachers, professors, and administrators are properly prepared and have the skills to implement these emerging technologies. As you said, Dr. Napier, the human in the loop. Unfortunately, on February 10, 2025, the Trump administration ordered the termination of nearly $1 billion in ongoing federal education research and evaluation efforts at the Institution of Education Sciences and fired an undisclosed number of employees. The IAS is the research arm of the Department of Education. Dr. Del Pilar, in your testimony, you mentioned that the IAS, quote, assists states, schools, and educators with making data-backed decisions, assessing the impacts of various education programs and interventions, and more effectively supporting student learning. Can you share an example of some of the research at the IAS that has helped support teachers and administrators in integrating innovation in their classroom and how that could benefit us as we look forward to AI?
Sorry about that. One of the things that, one of the services that IES has traditionally hosted was the What Works Clearinghouse. It provides significant evidence of evidence-based practices that impact student learning and completion. And I think that that's one of the compendiums that provides educators, researchers, college administrators with significant research on what has been done, what works, and what is effective.
Why should this be done at the federal level?
I think it's easier to collect that type of data at the federal level. It's very expensive to provide to collect that data at the state level, number one. Number two, I think that the Department of Education previously used to bring folks together to really share those evidence-based practices that are working across states for us to have examples of what is working not only in one place but across the country.
I was thinking about that when Dr. Docking said that sometimes businesses and education institutions are not talking to each other. Could you imagine the Herculean task it would be for every state to administer this type of program when AI is moving so quickly? So at the federal level would be the best place to collect this research and data so that even the states that don't have the funding or the resources could access it from the federal government. Without IES, its knowledgeable staff, or the products it publishes, it will be hard for colleges to benchmark their outcomes and ensure that any innovative practice result in actual student success. The 2026 budget released by this administration cut funding for the Teacher Quality Partnership, which is one of numerous programs designed to address affordability and improve retention and completion for students. Back to you, Dr. Del Pilar. Do you believe cutting the funding for TQP or other teaching preparation programs is going to better support the implementation of advanced technologies in the classroom?
No, I think that those type of resources towards states and towards districts, I used to actually administer it for the state of Pennsylvania. It creates innovation in education. It provides evidence of what works in a state and what's possible in terms of partnership, in terms of proving outcomes for students.
Thank you. And as I've said on this committee oftentimes, that while curriculum is decided at the state and local level, teacher preparation and the supports that are involved in making sure that the people who stand in front of our children have the best training and resources available is something that the department and the federal government has historically done. Thank you. With that, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. I recognize now the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of you who are serving on this panel today. And I've been back and forth between other committees, but I did have an opportunity to read your testimonies, and I certainly enjoyed reading those and the work that you're doing. Dr. Docking, I want to just come to you first. In your testimony, you noted that by allowing colleges to share access to staff and courses virtually through the shared model that you developed, that Adrian College has reduced its academic payroll cost by more than $2 million in recent years. In fact, you projected that these savings could cause tuition to drop 20 to 30% in the coming years. So my question is, do you think that other colleges could similarly cut cost and tuition without sacrificing the academic quality?
I do, Mr. Harris, and one of the reasons why I do, obviously, is that it's happening in real time at Adrian College. You know, if you look at what students want these days, especially post-pandemic, they want some of their courses to be online. You know, before the pandemic, at a place like Adrian, we all thought, oh, everyone just wants the traditional 4 walls and a professor up front. That's not the case. We did a survey with around 10,000 students a year ago, and students said that they would like 2 out of every 4 classes to be online. And that's often because they work, or they're playing a sport, or they have other obligations, maybe even raising a child. And so online classes have gotten so much better than they were just a few years ago that students are getting a lot out of these classes. The other thing I'll mention is that 84% of the students who take these classes say they're as good as or better than current classes they're taking on campuses.
Wow. Well, it's refreshing to hear. I want you to know about your efforts to bring down those costs for your students. It seems that around here, we seem to be stuck in the mentality that if we throw more money at the problem, that somehow it's going to go away. But you also noted in your testimony that, and I want to quote from it, the future of higher education depends on adaptation, not higher tuition, larger federal outlays, or reliance on donors, end quote. So as we think about ways that Congress can play a part in the solution, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And do you think the government contributes to the skyrocketing college cost through the policies like uncapped loans?
I don't know whether that's the case. Like I said earlier, I think you may have been out of the room, that we really do pay attention to every penny. But I do think where the federal government can be very helpful is in the area of dual enrollment, because there are so many high school kids that are ready to take college classes in certain disciplines. And some of these high schools literally, it costs them money to have one of their kids dual enroll. So I would encourage the federal government to look at whether they could incentivize educators to push kids onto college that are ready for it. The only other thing I'll mention related to your first question is 24 students enrolled in these online classes 4 years ago. Now I have 1,100. That means that I don't have the need for as many professors on campus, and we have cut back on the number of professors just through retirements, et cetera. Sure. We haven't cut departments, and that has given us more money to give back to students in financial aid.
Well, I agree. When you subsidize something, you tend to get more of it. In fact, there was a study of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York that found that for every additional dollar of subsidized loan money available to students, colleges raise their tuition by as much as 60 cents. And that's a natural response from schools if they know they have an unlimited supply of money on one end. But over time, that policy, I believe, is breaking our system because it doesn't set students up for success. And it's clear to me today that the private sector is going to lead the way in bringing down college costs, but that the federal government needs to ensure our policies will incentivize that same thing. And I'm glad that the big, beautiful bill we enacted had some common sense caps on the amount of money students can borrow. In the last 40 seconds, I want to go to you, Dr. Napier, if I may. Your testimony emphasized the importance of the Trump administration's AI action plan and cautions that federal regulatory overreach could unintentionally hinder innovation. From your vantage point, can you just give us some specific types of federal rules, mandates, or reporting burdens that would be most harmful to the innovation?
Thank you for the question. And in general, any sort of mandates here will slow the progress of innovation. So if there needs to be anything enacted, it needs to be clear and pretty open to allow people to innovate in the space. And just to allow us to do great things.
Great. Well, thank you. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I recognize the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As somebody who, of course, went to college and spent or will be paying off loans for the rest of my life. College affordability is like one of the more important things to me. One of my concerns is that oftentimes we come in here and we have hearings and then we have policy suggestions that quite frankly just fall short. They fall short of meeting just how big the problem is. They fall short of making considerations for people who are least likely to already have access to wealth, access to, folks in their lives who have gone to college, communities that have already been marginalized in some way. I wonder sometimes why it is that so many other countries have been able to figure out free public education for all of their students from pre-K to higher education, and we just haven't been able to do it. It's not because we don't have the money. We're the wealthiest nation on earth. I think we spend more on the military than the next 7 or 9 countries combined. Is not because we need to invent a wheel. It has already been invented. There are already solutions that exist. Other countries have figured out free higher education without moving courses exclusively online, or making faculty obsolete, or requiring everyone to be a STEM major. Higher education in this country is just going to remain broken also as long as we don't fix those root failures that we continue to inherit generation after generation from pre-K to 12. We can't skip the steps of making sure kids have early access to learning, or of addressing deep inequities in our schools, of actually filling the gaps instead of outsourcing it out to PragerU. How are we going to be more innovative in higher education when we haven't addressed any of these root causes? When we have an administration that devalues the very idea of education and is stripping away poor kids' ability to even go to college in the first place? When our country has been chronically underfunding the institutions serving the largest shares of low-income students and students of color since inception. So, Dr. Del Pilar, how does this chronic underfunding of these institutions of higher education impact their ability to meet the students' needs?
All right, I think underfunding institutions, effectively what happens is they're not able to provide the supports that we've talked about in this hearing that actually lead to graduation. So if you're underfunded as an institution, you can't provide the wraparound supports. You can't provide services like CUNY ASAP. You can't provide access to advisors. You can't provide access to career advising. And so effectively stripping institution of resources does not allow those institutions to then offer the supports that help students be more successful.
Certainly. So instead of actually addressing these issues with solutions we know work, because again, other countries are using them every day. This administration is working tirelessly to make college even less accessible, less affordable, and essentially less successful. At University of Pittsburgh, in my district, I know a lot of folks have been mentioning programs that are successful in their districts. We have a program called the Pell Plus that matches students' Pell Grant funds to make tuition more affordable. But Trump's budget proposed reducing Pell Grants by about 20%. And under the $1 trillion tax cuts for the wealthy that the Republicans passed this past summer, fewer students are going to have access to Pell Grants at all. So this means that lower income students in my district will lose out on funding that would have helped them to pay for college. Or it means that colleges have to find new innovative ways to navigate new loopholes that are created to make things harder for them. This bill is going to devastate higher education access and affordability, especially for the most vulnerable student. It slashes loan limits. It forces students to take an even higher interest rate debts that they won't be able to pay back. So no, not letting us take out loans isn't going to help. The interest rates will simply be higher because they will usually be private loan sharks. It guts consumer protections when for-profit colleges defraud them, and we can't forget how many students rely on SNAP and Medicaid. What will happen to them when those cuts go into effect? Very quickly, Dr. Del Pilar, your organization at first referred to this bill as the Great American Heights. Can you describe how the policies in this bill are moving us even further away from affordability?
I mean, I would argue that many of the provisions in this bill actually make it less affordable for students to attend higher education. We already have an access issue in this country. Less students are going to college today than there were in 2019, and I expect for us to continue to see that move as students decide to take a different path that doesn't involve higher education. We know that 65% of the jobs in this country are going to require higher education. If we're not preparing students in terms of providing them access, and that what we're doing is we're not preparing the workforce for the jobs that are being created effectively in this country.
Thank you. And I would simply argue and end by saying that the goal for college affordability is not to push all poor kids into one lane and all wealthy kids into another. We have better options here. I say we can join so many other countries in the world who value educating all of our young people and actually invest in them. I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Now I recognize the great member from Indiana, Mr. Messmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Oyerinde, many institutions have struggled to innovate due to governance challenges and risk-averse models. You describe your governing board as both a guardrail and a catalyst for innovation. What specific governance policies have most helped you move quickly while still maintaining accountability to students, accreditors, and the public?
Thank you. Yeah, look, our Board of Trustees is comprised of the most innovative and experienced educators at the 2-year college level and 4-year college level in our country. Dr. Eduardo Padron, for example, was president of Miami-Dade College for about 33 years and is currently president emeritus. When I met with him and pitched him on the idea of joining our Board of Trustees, he said, I'll join on one condition, which is that you work quickly. I'm impatient and I'm old, and I want to see this problem solved in my lifetime. That's what he told me. And so we've worked really hard to bring folks like him around who are going to push us, but they also govern us. And so what they do is they institute guardrails that make sure that we continue to have great outcomes for students in terms of graduation rates and retention rates as we grow. Why? Well, because as one person, a very successful person once advised me, design your organization so that an idiot could run it, because one day one will. And so we do everything we can to make sure we have the governance structures in place so that long after I'm gone, we still have the best outcomes for students as we grow.
Following up on that, what lessons can traditional institutions learn from campus's governance model?
I think number one is innovation and actually specifically picking numbers like you would in a normal Silicon Valley startup, like what is your graduation rate, and actively making sure that every quarter you're making a little bit of progress towards it is ultimately the only way to get these issues under wraps. We have to innovate our way out of these problems, and it takes technology, it takes people, it takes a combination of both. And so the campus model is high tech, but also high touch, and I think that's why it's working.
Thank you. And campus and some other community colleges seem to be embracing alternative education models. Are traditional large state universities readily accepting class credits from students that are trying to transfer, from campus?
Some are, and it's really been phenomenal. We work with, in your state, Butler University. We work with Arizona State University. We work with University of North Texas, University of Central Florida. If you come to campus and you graduate, you get to transfer into those schools with not only guaranteed credit transfer, but also guaranteed admissions. Unfortunately, however, that's not how it works in all universities across the country. We need, actually, I think this is one thing this committee could work on to make sure that guaranteed credit transfer works. Calculus 1 hasn't changed since Sir Isaac Newton discovered calculus, and yet College A says College B's calculus ain't the same as what we're offering. It's not true. What actually ends up happening is that students who start off at a community college who do transfer into and graduate from a 4-year are going to graduate with about 130% of the credits they needed for the degree. That's wasted taxpayer dollars making students take the same class over. In my opinion, that's what DOGE should have started focusing on.
Okay. Dr. Napier, are you seeing acceptance from your model into 4-year institutions, traditional brick and mortars?
Yes, so with Maine, it's a partnership between all of our community colleges and universities, and beyond AI, in other degree programs, there is a lot of acceptance across the board for that transfer aspect. Of course, we want to prepare our learners to go into the job market, but we want to ensure they have opportunity for further education, research endeavors, and much more. So in Mississippi, yes, we have a great collaboration amongst everyone.
Excellent. In your testimony, you highlight collaboration with employers across manufacturing, IT, logistics, and other key sectors. Based on that expertise or that experience, what approaches have proven most effective in facilitating strong, durable industry partnerships that institutions can rely on as they modernize programs and expand workforce-aligned training?
I think a lot has already been said up until this point, with the key thing being communication. We can't get anything done if we don't understand the problem at hand from the workforce employer side and understanding what academia can do to meet that skills gap component. So that's been the biggest opportunity for us, but it can also be the biggest challenge at times. So as long as we have that consistent, continuous feedback loop that's occurring, whether that's month to month, semester to semester, academic year and beyond, we can continue advancing and adapting these programs to ensure we meet critical needs in the state and in the nation.
Okay. Yeah, and technology is changing rapidly, so it's a never-changing landscape. So thank you. I'll yield back the rest of my time.
I thank the gentleman. Now I want to recognize the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses for your testimony today. It strikes me as a little odd that we're having a hearing about higher education and innovation at exactly the same time in which research programs and grants are being gutted by this administration. I represent Eastern Connecticut, which is the home of the University of Connecticut, which is, again, I think an outstanding research university. Within really days of the inauguration, they were getting notices that grants that had already been obligated were being canceled. And we're talking about work that was being done on things like autism, obesity, early childhood education. They have a school of education there, which has been doing great work for many years. And Dr. Pilar, your testimony, I mean, you sort of alluded to the fact that the compact initiative that the administration, I guess, is putting out there is going to be, again, really tying research to an agenda that has really actually nothing to do with the actual content of the research that universities have been engaged in. And maybe you could just talk about that a little bit in terms of, what colleges and universities are doing, not just for higher education, but our whole economy and our healthcare systems, and putting us really at the forefront internationally in terms of, life-saving and, huge advances in technology that, again, are being threatened by an approach that is tying this work to politics and really not to just, learning and science.
I think we're doing a tremendous disservice to innovation by limiting what can be studied, by canceling research grants, by canceling research that was already underway in this country. I think it has a significant impact. We know that colleges in most towns are significant economic drivers. They employ in many places the most people. I'm originally lived in Pennsylvania. The Penn State University system was one of the largest employers in the state. And so by cutting resources to institution, by cutting research at institution, you're effectively ending a lot of the innovation that happens in this country around technology, around medical research, around education, around so many areas that are critical to advancing economic opportunity in this country and well-being, to be really frank with you. And so by cutting those opportunities, I think we're going to have significant and detrimental effect to not only capital in this country, but also to economic mobility.
So the latest tally that we had back in May from UConn was about $32 million had been canceled, and there has been more since then. To your point about employment, one of the sort of spillover effects of these cancellations was that graduate students who had been lined up during breaks and the summer break in terms of being employed as part of the work that these grants entail, which is something that has been part of university work for decades and decades, basically were being laid off and really left also in terms of just their own academic plan sort of stranded because of this just indiscriminate sledgehammer that's being taken by agencies and departments of this administration. It's affecting also people. There's a woman who came into my office from Old Lyme, Connecticut, who's stage 4 lung cancer, non-smoker, in her 50s, had been working again with a university-based treatment program up in Boston, doing well. The plan was to have her begin mRNA trials, which again is something that's pretty exciting in terms of cancer, fighting cancer, and that was canceled obviously because of a political agenda at the Department of Health and Human Services. So again, yes, innovation's good, but I think sometimes, focusing a little bit on AI sort of ways to help with, individual issues is a good thing too. But, the bigger picture right now is that we're watching an administration destroy university-based innovation through systems of grants that, again, have, I think, really put us at the forefront internationally, as I said. And again, I'll give you my final.
I'll just say we are choking off the talent pipeline in this country. There are programs, Michigan State University, for example, is not admitting any graduate or doctoral students in certain programs because there isn't any funding available to fund those students. And so we are effectively choking the talent pipeline in this country.
What a tragedy. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman, and I recognize the gentleman who drove the farthest to the committee hearing today, the gentleman from Guam, Mr. Moylan.
Didn't want to miss this exciting hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really appreciate it. And it is exciting for me. I just recall as you're sharing their stories for these students that are now experiencing this, I recall when I used to go in and buy used textbooks at the library at the university, and the best used textbook you would get is the one that is highlighted and it has notes in it from the previous students, because it's highlighting the questions for the instructor, because they go over the same test every year and every year, and I got an A in that class. But it's just really exciting how we've been able to take this so far, and that used textbook was the only AI I had then. But now this is a great time, and you'll be able to reduce the costs as well. I had a part-time job. My parents gave what they could, until finally the GI Bill really made it happen for me. But then after a 4-year degree, I had no real work with my degree and ended up working in a restaurant. Fortunately, the Army picked me up and I got active duty, so I'm happy for that. But I want to thank this panel for having your innovative classrooms. And my first question is for Dr. Napier. And as director of Maine, you partner directly with campuses to help them embed AI competence across both academic degree pathways and short-term workforce programs. Can you talk about how you help them integrate these skills and which strategies have proven most effective in helping colleges modernize their curricula while remaining financially stable?
Thank you for the question. Partly this goes back into, we have 2 routes, like a shared curriculum that's pretty general and broad that anybody can take and deploy. And what that does is reduce duplication. It also gives maybe some of the smaller institutions higher quality content, and then positions the larger institutions to streamline a process there. They don't have to start from scratch, essentially. So on that pathway, it's pretty general, and then what they can do, whether that's an institutional or instructor standpoint, is pick that curriculum apart, pick and choose aspects they want to embed into their current teaching. So again, if I'm teaching an English composition course, maybe I don't need to understand the development of AI, but I need to understand the ethical and responsible usage of it, and maybe the prompting side, how to write and things of that nature. So there are different flexible pathways from both an institutional standpoint and then instructor by instructor. And we see that while all of these institutions work together under the main umbrella, they all have autonomy to approach it in the way that best fits them at this time.
Thank you. And Mr. Oyerinde, thank you. Just take that a little slower. The program has long been cornerstone of access for needy students, but the program now faces a significant budgetary shortfall. We also own taxpayers' assurance that these dollars follow value, not failure. Given your decision to keep tuition below the maximum Pell Award so students can attend debt-free, how should we think about Pell's structure in an era of physical pressure if we want to encourage more low tuition, debt-free models like yours?
It's a great question, and look, I think the Pell Grant is one of the most important things that groups like this have ever done in our country. In fact, if you walk around our office in New York, in our headquarters, we have lots of portraits just like this of Senator Pell. It's a little bit weird, but it's a great opportunity for us to always talk about the great work that groups like this can do. I think there's a simple solution, which is that, yes, Pell has about a $4 billion shortfall at current rates, and I think that we can probably figure out how to spend less Pell at institutions where it has almost no impact. We have more than $5 billion of Pell going to institutions like the University of Southern California, no offense to anyone who's that's their alma mater, where the Pell Grant represents less than 4% of the annual tuition. Pell's not supposed to be used that way. It's supposed to be the difference maker. It's supposed to be used at community colleges, at in-state universities, where without the Pell Grant, students would actually not be going to college at all. Instead of making Pell a 5% off, let's make it a 50, or in the case of campus, 100% off the cost of attendance.
Thank you. For my last question, Dr. Docking, as you might know, the University of Guam has been leading the way as a 4-year accredited institution in the Western Pacific, which is a point of pride for us in Guam. But one of the challenges that can bring this limited resource for expanding programs, can you please discuss how the hybrid model you described can enhance choice for students where academic options might otherwise be limited?
Yes, sir. Places like Guam are perfectly suited for the shared classes that we offer. And if your institutions were to join the consortium of what currently is 140 colleges and universities throughout the country, it'd give you access to these classes, and you wouldn't be limited by borders or anything else for the majors that we currently offer.
Thank you. Thank you to the panel. I just want to add one final thing. My colleague recommended that your curriculum also include capitalism. I also want to add patriotism, too. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman, and I recognize another former teacher, the representative from New York, Mr. Mannion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss innovations happening in higher education and how we can improve college affordability and student success. In Central New York and the Mohawk Valley, our community colleges, universities, private and public, and our K-12 institutions are leaders when it comes to embracing new ways of learning and preparing students for the future workforce. It's also a great part of our history, as Syracuse University and the State University of New York Environmental Science and Forestry had a relationship back in 1911 that partnership was established. So we continue to build on our tradition of growing technology programs in the area and work with our local employers in the K-12 public and private higher ed space to make sure that we're meeting the needs of those workforce demands in our higher ed institutions and our K-12 institutions, are leaders in providing that skilled workforce. For example, there are dual enrollment and direct admissions programs that have been streamlined. These educational pathways are expanding opportunities for our students, and formal articulation agreements between colleges are simplifying the transfer process by ensuring students can keep all of the credits that they've earned. These innovative models should be scaled up to address national challenges. I'm particularly concerned about programs as they relate to the transfer process. Many students do lose far too many credits and can find themselves functionally starting over, putting years of work to waste. In fact, although 80% of community college students intend to transfer to a 4-year college, only 1/3 end up transferring within 6 years, and only 13% ultimately earn a 4-year degree within 6 years. So in that vein, related to transfer of credit, I'll start with Dr. Del Pilar. You've done a lot to analyze the challenges of the transfer process and offered recommendations for improvement. Can you briefly explain what the barriers community college students face as they navigate the transfer system?
I mean, I think that the transferability of credit is the largest obstacle that students face, number one. Number two is navigating a very complex admission system that oftentimes discourages students from transferring onto an institution. You know, some of the GAO did a study years ago, found that transfer students on average lose around 52% of their credit. This is one of the places where I think AI can provide significant support in doing that type of course analysis and allowing for, you know, if 90% of the course matches and only 10% doesn't match, then you have that pairing with the human who can actually look at those differences in curriculum. And so I do think that the transferability of credit, knowing what transfers and having easy pathways is the biggest obstacle that transfer students face.
Mr. Oyerinde, you had mentioned the transfer process a few times in your comments. Do you have anything to add?
Well, an amen would be a good start. Yeah, look, right now it makes no sense. College A has already done an articulation agreement with College B to say our Calculus 1 is equivalent. College B also already has a guaranteed transfer with College C. But then if a student from College C tries to go to College A, they say, we don't accept it, it's not equivalent. This is literally violating the sort of transitive property, a basic law in mathematics. It drives me insane. And if this group can do something to solve it, I think we'd be in a much better shape.
Right, so it sounds like you're encouraging us to establish legislation that might protect the students or protect the appeals process, and if I hear correctly also, utilizing AI potentially to do so. That being said, if we're talking about legislation or AI, in your opinion, anyone can answer, what should be the overarching government body that would establish which AI programs are going to do that exact analysis to make sure these transfer credits occur, and that legislation should be shrined under which federal department?
I think the key is just transparency. The data already exists. Every university knows the other universities that they've articulated with. I think the same way we have iPads data for reporting demographics and things like that, if we had a centralized resource for reporting articulation agreements and equivalencies, then we can get around this problem very easily.
Thank you so much to all the witnesses. I appreciate it. I will say that educators understand education best, and therefore I will continue to stand up to not dissolve the Department of Education. Thank you. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I recognize now the doctor from Missouri, Mr. Under.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. It is clear that college costs have skyrocketed in recent years. Since 2015, the average tuition at a private four-year university has increased from $35,500 to $51,300, a staggering 44% jump. Likewise, average tuition at in-state for four-year universities in the public sector has risen from $9,800 to $12,700 since 2015. Even more concerning, the return on investment of a four-year college degree has not kept pace with rising tuition. In fact, it has substantially declined. One recent analysis found that more than 100 programs at colleges with acceptance rates below 20%, so our most competitive colleges, have a negative return on investment. Students in these programs, which are often in arts and humanities, may be better off financially if they had not attended college at all. Another study uncovered that 16% of high school graduates and 28% of associate's degree holders earn more than the median worker with a bachelor's degree. So clearly, expanding federal student loans has not curbed soaring college costs. If anything, it has exacerbated them. As more students rely on federal aid, institutions are investing more resources in complying with federal regulations rather than improving classroom instruction. And those with higher administrative costs are ultimately passed on to students and families. And because institutions know that the federal government will cover this tuition, they face strong incentives to raise prices faster than inflation. More government intrusion in higher education has not lowered college costs. However, private sector innovation can lower costs. New higher education models are emerging that maintain instructional quality while reducing administrative overhead. Adrian College is one of these institutions embracing innovation. Dr. Docking, in your testimony, you described how Adrian's partnership with RISE has enabled the school to launch 38 new majors, minors, and certificate programs without hiring a single new professor. According to your testimony, they accomplished this by supplementing on-campus courses with shared online resources, and 84% of students reported being equally or more satisfied with their shared online courses than with traditional on-campus classes. That is encouraging and good to hear. I'm curious about the other, 16% who don't necessarily report the same, and 84 is overwhelming. What further improvements do you think can be made to this model, and what can we do to cut the regulatory red tape and improve the model even further?
Thank you, Mr. Onder. Yes, I think that if you look at the reason why students go to college these days, 90% of them say that it's because they want to get a better job, they want to make a better salary, they want to be able to provide for their families and live in safer neighborhoods and ultimately send their own kids to college.
Yes.
I think that means that all of us in higher ed need to have a closer relationship with the business community, the nonprofit community, to say, what do you want students to know getting off the commencement stage? What can we do as colleges to prepare them to not have to do essentially a 2-year internship to learn about whatever industry they're going into? So whatever the federal government can do to encourage those partnerships, I think will be very, very helpful to students and families.
And you testified, Dr. Docking, that your model's been adopted by more than 130 colleges nationwide with over 10,000 students enrolled in the College of the Future network. Do you believe this collaborative model could scale further, and what challenges would you anticipate based on your experience so far?
I do, Congressman, and I think because it's simply gotten so expensive for all colleges to operate that you will see colleges really being forced to get into a more collaborative model. And I think that's a good thing. I think, when we sit before Congress and we say we want, increases in Pell and SEOG and work study, I mean, that's important. We all, like additional monies. But I think the federal government probably is saying, what are you doing, colleges, to hold down costs? And I think this is the biggest initiative of its sort in several years, to truly hold down costs.
Well, thank you so much for your testimony. Again, thank you for all you for being here. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I recognize my friend from California, Mr. Desaulniers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my friend from Michigan. Thank you to the witnesses for being here. This reminds me a little deja vu all over again, Yogi Berra, and arguments in this committee some years ago about for-profit colleges and whether they were developing efficiencies overall and preparing young Americans for critical thinking and actually going into the workforce and being productive. Dr. Del Pilar, in that regard, as a member from the Bay Area who has had conversations with skeptical investors who invested in technology 20 years ago and did quite well, but now are similarly skeptical about AI being oversold by investment community. I just finished a wonderful book on the subject matter, The AI Con. So 86% of teachers and students, according to the Center for Democracy and Technology, used AI in 24-25, and a similar amount were skeptical about the practical application and the value, both from teachers and from students, and their experience. So good ideas can be bad, just like old ideas. What kind of guardrails do we have to thoughtfully look at? And I'm not against using technology, and my district surrounds the University of California and is in between 3 national laboratories. So using technology, but it's how we apply it and make sure it's done in such a way that there's a benefit that is measurable. That's sometimes, well, it's frequently difficult to measure. How do you prepare young people to go out and have successful lives?
I would say that one of my concerns, especially around AI, is bias, the presence of bias, and who it biases in these systems. There was a study recently that showed that a person of color with an ethnic-sounding name actually, when they were asked a question around selling a bike, actually were advised to pay a lower price or a higher price than a person with a non-ethnic sounding name. And so that bias exists in AI. We know that if you have bad data that goes in, bad data comes out. And so I would say, one, we have to protect bias. Two, I think data protection is critical. We continue to look for a silver bullet, not only in education, but in society writ large. And I would argue that in education, higher education, we talked about the internet being an innovator. We talked about MOOCs being an innovator. We talked about tablets being an innovator. And still, we use these things as props. And so I would say that, while I think we need to continue to think about the guardrails, especially around AI, we need to protect students, and we need to ensure that we're protecting against bias. The most disruption we saw in education higher ed was during the pandemic. And so when we're forced to change, oftentimes is when we see change in higher education.
So on a full student experience, spending a lot of time looking at that, particularly for disadvantaged communities, and being in a state where the CSU system, the community college system, and the UC system work really well and efficiently, particularly community colleges where transfer students regularly in my district can get their AA and have a pathway to a UC or a CSU. But we've been spending more and more time, for a variety of reasons, technology foremost amongst them, on behavioral health support for the students. So speak to that a little bit. All this disassociation in technology, we now know how that has hurt younger people in cognitive development, but also college-age students. So getting this right is first do no harm. Let's make sure that we're not inhibiting innovation, but also that it's not, we're not investing in it in such a way that there's so much damage we have to go back and repair that damage generationally.
Yeah, we shouldn't be innovating at the expense of students or at the expense of anyone, to be perfectly frank with you. And so I do think as we look at the challenges, especially post-pandemic, students are struggling with the mental health, struggling with access to mental health services. And so I do think we have to be thinking about how we provide those services that not only provide students with their basic needs, but also those needs that allow them to thrive. And so as we think about how we're supporting students, we have to think not only about if we're providing them access to the internet or to the most innovative curriculum, but also if we're providing them access to those other services that are critical for student supports.
So on one level, as a former small business owner, reducing cost, I get the efficiency of having teleclasses and using the scale, but you've got to figure the whole cost analytically. So if it's beneficial for bringing down the cost, but if there are societal costs, how do we analyze that and prepare ourselves for that and be at the least aware of it? And with that, I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Now I recognize the good representative from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman.
First of all, I'd like to respond to something that was said from the other side of the aisle about a half hour ago. There was a strong implication that it was superior to get ahead, that you ought to be involved in a four-year university. And I don't think that's true even remotely. I don't think it's true financially. Not that I'd suggest everybody drive truck for Walmart, but I pointed out that one of those Walmart truck drivers live better. You see on the back, I guess they're making about 140 grand a year, which I'm sure is more than most college graduates make. I think since I've been a politician, one of the things I do is I ask kids at Eagle Scout Awards what they're going to do in the future. And I've noticed we've gone from maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago was all, I'm from the Midwest, I'm going to go to Northwestern, I'm going to go to Madison. Now more and more are going to tech school, more and more are going to trade school, which means they're catching on. But I'm still afraid when people say things like the Congresswoman from the other side of the aisle said, that you're leading kids to believe that college is the answer, a four-year college. It's not the answer. Now, next question I have, I'm not sure we're going to give this to, is it seems to me over time tuition rates go up. And it seems to me also the number of non-teaching personnel in colleges has been going up somewhat dramatically the last 30 years, which kind of concerns me because I don't know what you're getting for these people. Does someone want to comment on the apparent increase in number of employees who do things other than teach on campuses?
I'm happy to start. I served as Deputy Secretary of Higher Education for the state of Pennsylvania. We had 42 unfunded mandated reports that the state Senate and Congress demanded every year that no one ever looked at. When you have reports that no one looks at, when you require data reporting that no one looks at, then you're creating a position for somebody that doesn't support teaching and learning.
Why don't you get us, after we leave here, a list of reports that you feel are unnecessary?
This was for the state of Pennsylvania, not federal reports. So this were reports.
It's not our fault, okay.
Yeah. But there are, for example, the Trump administration for the most recent requests for admissions data, there's been some estimates that show that it's going to take 200 hours to collect that 7 years of admissions reporting data for institutions. Those are.
What was the purpose of the reports?
To effectively have a better sense of who's getting admission and how colleges are determining who gets admitted to their institutions.
I'll just jump in here. Look, the reality is that we have to get much more efficient at actually running these administrative processes. Things like data gathering should be fully automated if institutions have modern systems, and that's possible today.
Exactly. You would figure in gathering paperwork, you'd have a lot less people working there than were working there 30 years ago.
If you've got the modern systems, that's right.
Yep. Okay, a couple of you are running colleges that do a lot of online teaching. Percentage-wise, how much does your tuition, and by the way, I'm from Wisconsin. I know in Wisconsin for a while they were charging more for online classes than in-person classes. I never got a good answer for that. But how much lower do you think you can cut tuition if you go online compared to everybody's got to show up?
Well, our goal at Adrian College, and we're a very traditional private liberal arts institution founded in 1859. But as we look at the future of higher ed, we absolutely believe it's hybrid, that students that even go to traditional schools will be taking some of their courses online. It is less expensive for us to do that by a substantial amount. I said earlier that it costs $500,000 to start a new major. In the traditional system, with this new shared system that we have, it's about $15,000. As we look out, we hope to drop tuition 20 to 30% over the next several years because of the tremendous efficiency that's brought to the system when our schools work together.
Okay, anybody else want to take a swing at that one?
Well, yeah, look, we've already done it. We've demonstrated that we can keep tuition priced below max Pell by doing live synchronous online. If you just do asynchronous, I think you're going to see, as Dr. Pilar said, poor results as we saw with some of the MOOCs. But when you focus on synchronous, people can still have that human connectivity that is so important when you want young people to stay engaged.
Okay, people on the other side also commented on how they do things in Europe. As the great Ronald Reagan said, we didn't found this country to do what Europe did, right? Okay, thank you. We're out of time here.
I thank the gentleman. Seeing no other members at the dais right now than the ones that have already spoken, we've come to the end of our questioning of witnesses, and may I quickly state, you've been an excellent panel. Thank you. An excellent panel to start back in with this committee and our deliberations. So now I turned over to the ranking member, Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses, and I certainly support that statement. They've been a great panel. Today's discussion has made one thing abundantly clear. Innovation in higher education is only meaningful when it improves student success, expands opportunity, and promotes equity. We all agree that technology, new learning models, and student-centered practices can transform higher education. However, as we've heard, innovation without accountability, evidence, and a focus on outcomes is not progress, it's a step backward. And that's precisely the direction the Trump administration and my Republican colleagues have taken us. Their big ugly law cuts essential financial aid options, pushes families into predatory private loans, and makes it easier for bad actors in the for-profit sector to exploit students. Their efforts to dismantle the Department of Education, especially hollowing out the Institute of Education Sciences, have left us without the basic research and data needed to understand what works. We cannot innovate responsibly if we are operating in the dark. We've demonstrated that when we ground the innovation in evidence, we can help students not only increase enrollment, but also complete their degrees and find rewarding work. Programs like the Post-Secondary Student Success Grants show what real student-centered innovation looks like. Initiatives that improve advising, expand tutoring, support basic needs, and ensure students stay on track. Removing federal funds for these programs is not just short-sighted, it puts us on the back foot on the world stage. And so as we confront rapid changes in technology and the growing presence of AI in classrooms and workplaces, we must redouble our efforts on evidence-based solutions that close gaps rather than widen them. Our charge is simple: ensure every student, no matter who they are or where they come from, has a fair shot at a high-quality degree and the brighter future that it provides. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. It pleases me to have a hearing where my notepad is filled up, and encouragement. I appreciated several comments today. No silver bullet. How true that is, especially if we're thinking of academia meeting the key issue, and that's educating a workforce. And so when we are stuck in a setting where the same old is the same old, and that's what we're going to do, we will not achieve the success that I think our commitment has today to be committed to. I like the concept of a key issue for education that will sell education to the students of the present and the future is no debt. I like that. That does sell. And I appreciate today that we have evidences of institutions who have not shied away from the One Big Beautiful Bill and its efforts to give encouragement to reduce the unnecessary costs to our students in education, to make sure that that no debt is something available for more, and who have been willing to say, no excuses. We will find a way through innovation, through pressure points in our own setting, to find what works and makes an impact for the incoming students that says, you will be educated, you'll receive better quality at more efficiencies and reduced costs. And I think that's what we're looking towards. I'm also hesitant to state it, but sometimes I go where angels fear to tread and say, you know, did we notice that the Department of Education was out of business for 7 weeks? Did your institutions, Adrian College and others, stop working, stop addressing student needs, stop teaching? Sadly, probably we're still filling out some of the paperwork that comes from the federal government. But I think the innovation is out there. I think when push comes to shove and we say, have at it, we will allow you that ability to innovate, to move forward with credible oversight, yes, especially where their federal dollars do come, credible oversight, but not oversight that pinions people down from moving forward in the system. You know, I think attention to the customer is the key, and we've heard that today. The customer, that student, that parent, and the teachers as well, who sometimes are hobbled by all that presses against what they desire to do and have dreamed about doing when they were educated themselves. Student success is what we're looking for. I would quickly state that while we've looked at some of the lack of clear immigration standards that are there, the world is still coming to the United States for higher education. This is where they want to be. And given the opportunity, they will come here. And I believe that that is a motivator for us to make sure that we give the education community the opportunity to do what education needs to do in the real world. So I appreciate the fact that today was on innovation, and that we see that there are tools to be used that'll produce efficiencies and ultimately ramp up success. And I also appreciate the term that was put out today, impatient and old. I am that. I am impatient, albeit older. I want to see our educational institution expand exponentially because of now what we've seen take place. And some of the disinterest that has come in some of our students that have decided to go other directions, that if we're willing to compete, we'll pull a lot of those back to the good of this country. So again, I want to say thank you to this panel for being here today. You've been very helpful to us, and a lot of reams of information will have been taken down, and the opportunities for other hearings in the future to move us forward. Without objection, there being no further business, the committee stands adjourned.